Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. It's promptly 12:30 Eastern Time. Thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk, well, basically kind of take a quick tour around Church Windows Payroll today. We're here together for the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try my best to keep to the 20-minute time frame here. We are recording today's webinar event. It will be available out on our website here sometime in the next day or two for you to re-review this if you would like. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those. If I cannot answer the question during the event, I'll certainly be happy to stick around and see what we can do to get those questions answered today. Again, folks, we're just doing kind of showing some bells and whistles about Church Windows Payroll. I'll try to get through a quick payroll calculation process here real quick, and then we'll try to get things wrapped up. Again, if you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of your control panel. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about the payroll module, not about accounting or membership or other portions of Church Windows. And let's go ahead and we'll get started here. So Church Windows Payroll is a separate program for the time being from the regular Church Windows program. So you've got your stained glass window icon on your desktop. You've got a little green payroll check. Right now, the payroll is a separate icon, separate program, runs independently of Church Windows. That's going to change probably, but keep an eye out for exciting changes in payroll next year. So payroll is a regular kind of traditional payroll program. You can post payroll for your lay staff and contractors if you wish, albeit you can produce 1099s from your accounting module as well for your vendors that you pay there. But I click on data setup and we notice here about the first two options are employee file, independent contractor file. So if you wish to pay your independent contractors through Church Windows Payroll, you may certainly do so. But of course, really what you're here for is to really pay the church employees if applicable. So again, just in case you're unaware of it, you can produce 1099 NEC documents, tax N99, 1099 NEC documents from accounting for your contractors, so you don't have to pay your contractors through payroll. You can produce those from accounting. However, if you want to print checks, produce W-2s and W-3s and 941s and what have you, then you're going to be looking at setting up employees and paying them through Church Windows Payroll. Okay. Let's take a minute and go into our employee file here. I kind of talk about what makes Church Windows Payroll unique in terms of what may suit you and help you and your church with regards to payroll. And notably, in addition to being able to pay your lay staff, okay, regular employees, one of the things that makes Church Windows Payroll truly unique is how it's suited for payroll for ministers. So if we look right here in the upper left of under our employee file, our Larry Higgins, our first employee, senior pastor, he's right here marked as a minister. That tells the software that they're a clergy and that they're not subject to standard Social Security and Medicare withholding amounts. So again, that's one of the things that makes Church Windows Payroll truly unique, is the idea that in addition to supporting payroll for lay staff, it also nicely supports payroll for ministers as well. Pursuant to that, if we click down here under our Allowances tab, we also notice that on Larry, our senior pastor, that we also have a housing allowance set up here for him, and that's paid and included on his regular check. So again, since pastors' payroll is very unique, in addition to not withholding Social Security and Medicare, no match for Social Security and Medicare with that in mind, we also don't need to produce or print two separate checks for ministers, one for housing allowance and one for their regular base pay. We can set up the allowances so they can be included as part of their check, of course, all on the same check, and have it report correctly on their W-2 at inbox 14 without being included in wages. Sure, of course, we can set up other allowances that are paid to employees, maybe that are separate from regular base pay. In this case, like a mileage reimbursement for pastor or a cell phone reimbursement. Those can all be set up as part of our allowances. In addition to that, we can also set up deductions for employees for things like health insurance or dental insurance or pension contributions. Anything that is not deducted from an employee's pay that would not be considered tax withholdings. Okay, don't confuse deductions with withholdings for taxes. Those are different. Again, following up to that, if our pastors many times are not withholding taxes, we can come into our federal tab and we can uncheck use tax tables, or we can and do the same thing for state if the employee or the pastor in this case is not wanting to have any taxes of any kind withheld from their paycheck. So we're going to assume Larry doesn't want to have any federal taxes withheld. We're also going to assume the same thing for state. We're going to click apply. We do also like to point out that here under the federal tab, we do have the minister's SE tax. So if Larry would like to have us withhold his self-employment tax, have that deposited as part of our regular 941 payment tax deposit, we can certainly do so, but only if he requests that we do that. So if we go to another different employee, we're going to see things like use tax tables will be checked. Minister's box is not checked. That would be considered an employee who is a regular lay staff. And again, on their General 1 tab, we're going to set them up with either the appropriate, hourly or salaried pay type with the appropriate pay period for their pay frequency, whether that's weekly, biweekly, monthly, or semi-monthly. Okay, so again, a couple different reasons as to why church windows may be suitable for your staff, and particularly for your ministers, is it does support payroll for pastors and clergy very, very well. In addition to, the employees and being able to set them up accordingly, of course, the payroll module does transfer seamlessly into accounting. So once we have that link established, right here we go to our account number setup window. Takes a few seconds here, but it opens up to, again, our different employees. And as we go through each of them, it does show how it's linked to each one of their respective expense accounts. Shows the checking account, tax liabilities, withheld liability accounts for, our tax payments, and again, linking to the expenses and liabilities for deductions and allowances and local taxes if applicable for you, okay? Before I jump into running a quick payroll here for you, one of the things I also want to point out, going back to our employee file, if we go down here to our General 2 tab and we scroll down near the bottom, notice here we've got an option that says Use Direct Deposit. So our payroll software right here does create what's called an NACH compliant file. It meets federal banking standards. Basically, nothing communicates between church windows and your bank, church windows payroll in your bank, but it does produce a file that can be exported from the software and uploaded to your bank to pay your employees electronically if you wish. Some employees can receive checks, some can be paid electronically. There's no requirement to pay some with everybody with direct deposit or everybody with checks. You can have a combination or a mixture of both. Okay? But just an FYI, you check use direct deposit, you enter the routing account number, you do checking or savings, you enter the information appropriately, and then the employees can be paid electronically. You can find a video on our website or document on our website about setting up direct deposit and paying that, using that in church windows payroll as well. Okay? So let's go do a quick payroll calculation here real quick, and then we'll spend the last few minutes talking about some payroll reports. So we go to payroll, calculate payroll. We enter our pay period ended and settlement date. So we're going to make our settlement date the 15th. We're going to make our pay period ended the 10th of August, and then we're going to go to next. So at calculate payroll 2, I can choose who I'm paying. So I can either choose employees or contractors. I can choose based on a pay type, pay frequency, or a particular department code. In this case, all of our employees are on the same pay schedule, semi-monthly. So we're not going to make any selections. We can't even go so far as to choose specific employee/contractor, clear all, and check just specific names if we wish. But we're going to pay everybody. We go to next. That's okay. It's warning us that we've got folks paid. There's another pay date in my data, folks. Sorry, we can disregard that. But it is good to know that the software will warn me when there's a payroll with a same pay date or settlement date, if applicable, okay? So it's just warning us. It doesn't prevent us from doing this. It's just warning me that I do have another pay date in there with a similar information or data. So here it'll even show my last pay date. So we're going to click down here under Jimmy, and he's got a default number of hours of 45 set. We're going to say that he didn't work 45 hours. He worked 8 less this week, so this pay period. So we're going to make him 37 hours. Next pay period, it'll pop in with 45, which is what we have set in his employee file by default. I can go to employees here, and I can enter or key in vacation or sick time if I wish, if an employee is using vacation or sick time. That's not occurring here. We're going to go to next. We're going to click on Browse Payments at Calculate Payroll For, and we can examine and see what the net pay looks like here for everybody. As I kind of scroll down through the list, I go, yep, all of these figures are checking out with my employees. If I click on each one of them, it will show me what their withholding and things are at the bottom. So right here, if we go back up to Larry at the top, we notice nothing for federal amount withheld, nothing for state, no Social Security or Medicare. He is opting to pay in the local taxes. Okay. If I go to a different employee like Jimmy, who's a layperson, we do have federal tax, state tax, Social Security and Medicare withheld in a subsequent match, and local taxes if applicable. So the software does do what it's told, but you do have to make sure that your employees are set up properly. But everything looks good. As I scroll down the list, I'm going to cancel out of this. We're going to go to next. It's taking us to calculate payroll 6. Sorry, if I go back to 4, I can check to print some pre-posting reports if I wish. These are optional. They're not required. I always like to point out to folks that these reports will say down here at the bottom left that the payroll entries have not been posted. I am not at the point where I've actually posted those to the employee files yet. So what that means is I can go in and I can reprint all of these reports after it's posted if I wish, okay? But just an important thing to keep in mind. I'd send it to my printer in the upper left. I go to next. So I'm now ready to complete step 1, posting my payroll. So I'm going to create my transaction file to send to my bank. I'm going to print checks for my employees who are not opting for a direct deposit, and I am going to transfer it into accounting. So we're going to leave this checked as yes, and we're going to click Finish. Post to the employee file successfully. Step 1 is complete. Step 2 now pops up, and it's now asking me if I want to print stubs for my direct deposit employees. So I would want to make sure there was plain paper in my printer. I would simply go to Next. It opens up some direct deposit pay stubs. I know that this is true because as I scroll down here and I zoom in on my stubs a little bit here, let me scroll down. It says right here to be deposited via electronic transfer. Let me point out what I mean right here. So this is not a check. It is just to be printed to plain paper. So same thing, I would click the print icon in the upper left, send it to my printer. I click Next. It says, did they print correctly? I would say check these and yes, and click Finish. Now it says the transaction file has been created. I can now replace my paper with check stock, and I can now print my checks for the remainder of my employees, simply going Next. So I would now, again, with check stock in my printer, I would click the print icon in the upper left corner, send that to my printer. Again, I would hold off and wait till I examine them, ensure that the checks are presentable. Because this window allows me to put checks back in the print queue if I wish. Okay, so we're going to assume they all printed correctly. Yes, highlighted checks printed correctly. I would click Finish. Step 2 is now complete. It now seamlessly opens up my transfer to accounting window, and with one mouse click I transfer my payroll into my accounting program, into my books. That is how easy it is to calculate a payroll, folks. We're not going to print the transfer audit report, I can print that later. The only other final step now that I might need to do is if I'm transmitting my file to my bank, go here to Payroll and click the copy EFT file. Here's my August 15th pay. Create that file, save it wherever I save it, upload it to my bank to pay my employees electronically through the bank's website. Okay, so that's how easy it is to calculate, post, print checks, and transfer payroll into accounting, folks. With just a few minutes left, let's talk a little bit about some reports. Tax reports. Church Windows Payroll produces your pre-printed, pre-populated quarterly 941 form. So if I go here, choose quarterly 941 form, I choose, he said, waiting for the screens to pop up. Excuse me. Which quarter? Reporting quarter. If I backdate it to quarter 2, I choose my deposit schedule, whatever the IRS determines is your deposit schedule based on your tax ID. Choose your deposit state. I have no adjustments for group term life taxes. Simply go to Next. If I have any COBRA, Families First Act or CARES Act information here or retention credit, Form 7200, I would say yes on that, enter the appropriate window. I don't. Go to Next. No third-party designee information, no paid preparer info. Simply I can print the form, or we can create a e-file for our partner vendor Tax Bandits if you would like to use them to file your forms electronically. We're going to print it. Click Next. It tells me what it assumes my deposits are for the period. I click yes. It now pops up with my pre-populated 941 form for quarter 2. Can be printed and completely filed and sent into the IRS. Or again, you can use Tax Bandits if you would prefer to file electronically. In the current version, there's no way to electronically file from our software directly. In addition to that, yes, you do have your W-2 forms and W-3 forms, albeit the 2021 forms are not available and in the software yet. That'll be installed as part of our 2022 payroll installation. You know, the New Year's version of Payroll always installs the previous year's tax documents for things like W-2s and W-3s. But folks, there are a whole bunch of forms, documents in here that you can print that will help you with your payroll reporting needs. Not just the tax documents. Certainly you've got tax documents in here, 941X form and Form 7200, as well as the others. But there are other forms, pay period earnings, pay period deductions, accounting transfer audit report, history reports that show us, the history of employees for a particular pay year, in this case, say 2021, that will help you to deal with or troubleshoot payroll problems or determine whether things are set up or improperly or properly in your payroll program. Okay, one of the things I like to kind of conclude about this, folks, is, I'm a technician for Church Windows. I'm not a CPA or a qualified tax advisor. So if you call me on support calls, I may refer you to somebody who can answer or is better qualified to answer tax questions for you. Okay? I'm not qualified to answer those. I don't want to mislead you, so I want you to have the correct information. If I do that for you, it's not because I don't want to help you. It's because I don't want to mislead you, and I want you to get the proper information. Okay? So just be aware, payroll, we can do our best to help you when setting up and working with Church Windows Payroll, but we cannot answer all of your tax questions and your setup questions for you. But we will always do our best to try to help. All right, folks, that is where we're going to leave it today. And what do you know, 10 minutes till 1 here, timed out pretty well. So I'm going to leave that right here.